Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Exploring Social and Emotional Learning Through the Arts, featuring Sari Zon of Art Starts, Sheila Womble of Arts for Learning, and hosted by the Ontario Trillium Foundation's Artie Freeman. We're so excited to hear more about how the arts are an effective pathway to social and emotional learning. My name is Jack, and I'm a community animator at the Tamarack Institute. And before we really dive into this, I'm just going to go over a few technical details. So, today's webinar is part of a two-part social emotional learning series where we will be interviewing and learning from several leaders within the field. To reduce noise and distractions, we have you all muted today, so no need to worry about any background noise coming from your line. For those of you that are joining online, I'll have you take a quick look at the GoToWebinar control panel, and at the very bottom you will see a question box. If you run into any technical difficulties throughout the webinar, feel free to type into this box and I will be there to help you. We will also be opening up the last 15 minutes of today's webinar for Q&A, so please type in any questions you have in the question box throughout the presentation. We will do our best to answer them for you, so don't be shy. We'd love to hear from all of you. Unfortunately, if you're calling into this webinar on the phone, you do not have these features. However, you are welcome to email me directly at jack@tamarackcommunity.ca. I'll say that one more time, jack@tamarackcommunity.ca, and I'll look for emails and questions there. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's host, Artie Freeman, the strategy lead for promising young people at the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Artie?
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. As Jack mentioned, my name is Artie Freeman, and I've been responsible for the development of the Ontario Trillium's Foundation investment area related to the positive development of children and youth. One of the outcomes we have been investing in heavily is the social emotional development of children and youth. I'm really looking forward to learning about how social emotional learning is supported through the arts from our presenters today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters, Sari Zon and Sheila Womble. And I'll start off with Sari. Sari is the head of development for Art Starts. Art Starts is an award-winning charitable organization that uses the arts as a vehicle to inspire social change in Toronto's underserved neighborhoods. Sari is also a professional artist who uses traditional and caustic techniques with contemporary mixed media applications. Her work is held in corporate and private collections across North America. She's a writer, curator, and arts educator with 25 years of experience in multiple arts forms. Sari is passionate about empowering artists and communities to overcome barriers through program development, artist promotion, and career coaching. We also have with us today Sheila Womble, who's a proven leader with more than 15 years of experience in arts administration and education. Sheila has served as Executive Director of Arts for Learning since 2006. Under her leadership, she led the organization to a significant period of growth and transition, increasing the budget from $1.6 million to $2.5 million in 1 year. Before becoming executive director, she was Arts for Learning's founding arts program director. In that role, Sheila developed and produced arts programs at 47 after-school and summer camp locations and created a community of more than 85 professional teaching artists. She has designed and delivered countrywide professional development workshops for artists, educators, and arts administrators, and produced a 12-part promotional television series. Both our presenters are recognized leaders and experts in their fields. They serve on juries, municipal committees, and have received grants or educational scholarships in recognition for their work. So we're really honored to have them present and share their insights with us today. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them. So welcome, Sari and Sheila. And before we get into that, we just want to go through a few slides that explain what is social emotional learning, its benefits, and how communities can engage. So there's a lot of content on each slide, which really was intentional on our part. We wanted to make sure that participants have access to this information after the presentation. So for now, I'll go over a very high-level overview on each slide, but feel free to dig deeper on them after the presentation. So, what is social emotional learning? So, in a nutshell, social emotional learning, also known as SEL, is the process of attaining and applying the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. The wheel you see on the left is taken from Castle, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They're a great resource, and we've provided the link on the slide for your information as well. So the wheel describes 5 main competencies of SEL, as well as the environments and mechanisms needed to successfully support SEL. So there are 5 main SEL competencies: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. What we see here on each of the boxes are the skills required to develop each competency. So, for example, the skills that support social awareness include empathy, being able to understand different perspectives and worldviews, respecting diversity, and understanding social norms. So, essential to achieving social awareness are those kinds of skill sets. And in order for children and youth to develop that competency, they need to learn those specific skills. So, by the same way, if we look at relationship skills, in order to support children in gaining that competency, they need to learn communication and collaboration skills. They need to know how to resolve conflicts and ask for help when needed. And the same is true for the other competencies. And those, again, are listed for you. Feel free to visit them later. So, SEL skills and competencies are developed over long periods of time. They can be taught in school and after school. While the slide speaks to the benefits of tapping into the adolescent brain, SEL is essential rather in both early years and middle years development as well. So we've talked about social emotional learning and its benefits is what we want to unpack right now. So SEL is essential for the positive development of children and youth. It builds resiliency, it provides young people with the ability to manage their emotions, and it drives them towards positive choices. Basically, SEL allows young people to become self aware and know that they need to be in a positive and supportive environment in order to thrive, and know that when they're not in such an environment, to leave. And there's a lot of evidence that links SEL to positive outcomes. So, outcomes related to academic performance, education, to earning a higher income and employment later on in life, to having better health and better engagement with communities as well. And there's a list of different benefits of social emotional learning. And these have all been proven with evidence that it actually leads to those things listed there. At the same time, SEL has also proven to provide an $11 return for every dollar invested in SEL programming. And that's quite high. And more companies are also hiring for social emotional skills. There's even being developed artificial intelligence platforms that would suss out those specific skill sets, especially as we we're moving towards the fourth industrial revolution, where we're going to have a lot of artificial intelligence. Those skill sets are becoming more and more important, not just for life for young people today, but for future employment and for the economic benefit of our community. So we all have roles to play in supporting the development of children and youth. Communities can play a really active role in facilitating this happening. We know that schools are a really important environment, but just as important are communities, families, and homes. And the Aspen Institute has released a publication that really highlights where and when learning can happen and how communities can support that. So here are four main ways they identified. The first being supporting really communities to see the value and the vision for social emotional learning. Secondly, ensuring that there's access to data and that data is transparent. For instance, in Ontario, we have the Early Years Development Instrument, which really measures the readiness of children under 6, and they measure different domains, including social emotional learning. And we know that in the 2013 data, that children are more vulnerable in social emotional maturity domains today than they were 10 years ago. So data like this can really help communities plan and move forward and think about how to better support social emotional development. The third way is ensuring high quality and year-round programming. This would really help ensure that learning is sustained, that it's developed, and that there's an ongoing platform for young people to continue developing those skills. And lastly, they mention the need to really think about how to leverage and generate resources that can realize the community's vision for social emotional learning. So now that we've had a quick overview of social emotional learning, I'd like to move to our interview portion with our panelists and really hear more about the arts programs that they are involved with, and the link between that and social emotional learning. So we'll start off with Sari from Art Starts. So Sari, tell us a little bit about Art Starts.
Thanks, Artie. So Art Starts has been around since 1992. Art Starts creates vibrant Toronto neighborhoods through community building arts initiatives by inspiring change in Toronto's underserved communities. We use the arts to engage residents, to nurture resiliency and inspire personal growth. We bring residents together with professional artists in all artistic disciplines, and together we create accessible and dynamic art projects that reflect the identities and aspirations of each community. Oh, thanks for the slide. I forgot to tell you to change it. We do this through free after-school arts programs, March break and summer camps for children and youth in 5 Toronto housing neighborhoods. We do free arts workshops for adults and seniors. Neighborhood response. So when a neighborhood is experiencing trauma, we'll bring in arts programs that bring people together, and field trips to explore arts activities outside the neighborhood. We also work citywide. We do public art creation, so murals, mosaics, etc., in community spaces. We do a lot of youth mentorship, helping youth discover and access pathways to employment in the arts. We do artist development support and mentorship, helping marginalized and young artists develop their careers. And we do special projects and partnerships citywide. And we're involved in a lot of conversations like this about the impacts of arts programming on communities. We ensure we're meeting community needs by hiring artists and program managers with lived experience in the communities where we work. And we ensure artistic integrity and inclusivity by ensuring our artists and managers are well trained in the unique arts and social service facilitation models that we've been developing for several years now with the help of the Trillium Foundation. So that's a little overview of Art Starts. Okay, so to share some examples of how Art Starts' work has offered a pathway for social and emotional learning. We start by working with professional artists across all artistic disciplines. Oh, can we go back to the slide before? Thanks. Recognizing that there are infinite avenues and art forms to explore, and so many different methods within each art form to express emotion, to share ideas, to practice actions and reactions, to explore pathways, to experiment, to grow. Within the arts are the tools for individuals to find and hold their own space, and also the tools to give space to others. There are really no other forms of learning that offer this range of opportunities for effective and authentic social and emotional development and empowerment. Through art making, we learn about ourselves, our fears, our strengths. We can find outlets to express and regulate our emotions, relieve stress, test limits, build relationships, collaborate, and empathize with others. With conversations like the one we're having today about social and emotional learning through the arts, these conversations tend to focus on kids, usually in a school setting. how children benefit socially and emotionally from participation in the arts. But what we've seen in almost 27 years of doing this work is that where and how social and emotional outcomes are at their most powerful is, in fact, within a greater community context. What we see is that strengthening communities through the arts outside of the school setting has a very powerful trickle-down effect that nurtures social and emotional learning for youth, as well as individuals of all ages within that community. We can change the slide. Thanks. In 2011, Art Starts was approached to help a Scarborough community that was struggling with violence and tensions in and around their outdoor space, which was comprised mainly of a basketball court that was in desperate need of repair. The court was surrounded by a 2-foot-high concrete wall on all sides. Art Starts brought in an experienced mosaic artist to facilitate a collaborative community art project that welcomed participation from all community members and redeveloped the space by designing a multicultural, multi-generational mosaic that completely covered the wall. Over the next 3 years, under the direction of the artist, the space was completely transformed from a gray, crumbling space to a dynamic, colorful meeting place that actually sparkled in the sun and told stories of hundreds of community members in their own pictures and words. After 3 years of working together in the space, sharing stories and making art, community members' attitudes towards each other completely shifted, as you can see through some of the testimonials in these slides. Next slide, please. Thanks. It's through projects like these that we see how the arts can strengthen communities, give people a voice, and help nurture feelings of belonging in a way that nothing else really can. Years of doing this work has given Art Starts a real understanding of the kinds of bonds that occur from collaborative artistic activity like this, and an understanding of the effectiveness of the arts in building social engagement, cohesion, and support within communities, along with emotional resilience in individual community members. At Art Starts, social and emotional well-being are always our end goal. They're always at the center of what we do because we know how greatly these things impact life outcomes, how greatly they improve mental health, nurture emotional and social resiliency, and empower the disempowered. To be specific, what this looks like is that through collaborative art making, community members are developing friendships, nurturing relationships with healthy mentors, nurturing feelings of belonging and social cohesion in their communities. In diverse urban communities like the ones we work in, consistently achieving these outcomes means looking at many factors, including how to create meaningful cultural cohesion through art making. We work in marginalized communities, but the work we do can really translate into social and emotional development for members of any community, especially now when Toronto is so diverse and community demographics are shifting so rapidly due to immigration, rising housing costs, and so many other factors. So how do you continue to bring people together, ensure feelings of belonging for everyone, while so much constant change is taking place and there's so much uncertainty? And the answer is that you do that through a medium that is flexible, customizable, and infinitely changeable to meet the diverse needs of ever-changing communities. You do it through the arts. The biggest challenges we face in working in communities is the vast range of diverse needs and struggles and barriers that people face to feeling a sense of belonging in their community. What type of community building efforts can possibly overcome vast cultural diversity, social isolation, barriers to community participation, including language barriers, geographic barriers, physical and mental health barriers, knowledge barriers, and fears of not being welcome in community activities due to discrimination or stigma? There are so many ways that people can feel divided, isolated, and even afraid within their own neighborhood. So how can a single approach tackle all of these barriers? Our experience has shown us that working within an arts-based framework is the single most effective, most meaningful way to bring people together and create healthy, cohesive communities that nurture social and emotional well-being for all members. In any city, you have all of these communities where the public face or the perceived community identity has effectively excluded its most vulnerable members, because the people who are talking on behalf of the community are often a very small percentage of the actual community members, and they're usually people who have lived there the longest or have an interest in maintaining the status quo. Often it's the people who aren't doing the talking who are the most vulnerable members. And these people have stories and dynamic life experiences and new ideas to share and contribute. There's such a rich wealth of stories to tell and feelings, thoughts, ideas to share that so many people of all ages in our city do not feel welcome sharing with their neighbors or community members. And that can be extremely debilitating to their social and emotional health. What we see in working in community arts is that when people are given the tools to express themselves through the arts, that's where the true community development begins, because that's when you hear the voices that aren't being heard. But if we don't give the most vulnerable people the tools and the access to artistic opportunities and the safe spaces to create and to share, then we're not really building authentic communities, and we're not nurturing social and emotional well-being for all the individuals within that community. So I've been talking about community art making here, hands-on participation in the arts, artistic skills learning, working with artists. I'm talking about artistic creation. But it should be said that participating in the arts as an audience member is also really important. Exposure to a wide range of artistic experiences can really deepen authentic creation in communities and help people recognize that the arts can be an outlet for them or a method of sharing or engaging. When you see the vast amount of art that's being produced and you see enough of it that somewhere you see yourself mirrored in a play or a dance performance or an art exhibit, that experience can bring a very powerful feeling of recognition that you're not alone, which can be extremely valuable for emotional growth. And it can also bring a sense of belonging in the arts, a realization that the arts are an effective tool for sharing stories, one that could be a tool for you too. That feeling of belonging in the arts can only come from a city or a community that's invested in supporting cultural experiences that resonate with the diverse range of people. Once people see themselves reflected in a city's cultural life, then that can be translated into community art making, which we know builds healthy communities, increasing feelings of belonging and self-worth, increasing exposure to other people's stories and feelings of being supported and sharing your own experiences and your own ideas. These are all things that build healthy and resilient communities, which in turn improves social and emotional well-being in individuals. No matter who you are, how old you are, no matter what you're struggling with, there's a place for you to express yourself through art and a place to be heard, to connect and feel validated, either as an audience member by seeing yourself reflected in someone else's art, or as a participant in creating something new. When vulnerable people who've been marginalized start to see themselves as talented people who matter, as people who are creating and contributing and working towards making their community a better place, that's where the real change happens. And that's where true social well-being resides. And that's something that the arts can facilitate like nothing else can. The beauty of the arts is that it empowers people to tell their own stories, to not be subjected to someone else's narrative of who they are or what they need or what a healthy community would look like for them. Slide change, please. Art Starts runs an anti-gun violence program in Lawrence Heights in partnership with the Zero Gun Violence movement, whereby local youth address the seed causes of gun violence through art creation. These youth are effectively taking the first steps towards developing safe and healthy communities just by sharing their unique experiences with each other and with their community through songwriting, music recording, mural making, and interactive theater. They're talking to each other about what kind of future they want to see, what types of solutions could work. And this leads to conversations about how they can be part of working towards those solutions. They're starting to see themselves as valuable contributors to solving community problems. So the arts are effectively acting as a venue for everyone's voices to be heard. When your voice is unheard, you're less likely to listen to other people's voices. But when you're given a chance to be heard, you're also more likely to listen to the ideas and the stories of people you may not have been open to hearing from before. So it works both ways. When you provide a safe space and the tools for artistic exploration and expression, people learn to create, but they also learn to share, and they also learn to listen, to empathize, and ultimately to embrace others. So in order to have healthy social and emotional learning within a diverse community context, we really need to have social cohesion. And social cohesion doesn't happen quickly or easily. Just putting people in the same place together isn't enough. If people don't feel a sense of safety and belonging, then they won't engage. And if they don't engage, then social learning is a non-starter. Developing social cohesion means recognizing the barriers that people face, even when on the outside it may look like they're a part of a community that appears to be flourishing. And when we look at engagement, the arts are a uniquely powerful tool because there's nothing else that is diverse and wide-ranging enough that it can engage multiple groups of people in different ways at the same time. I know I have to wrap up. So in conclusion, the arts are an incredibly powerful tool for individual growth for youth, for developing resilience and feeling a sense of belonging in one's community. And by the same token, successful creative community development trickles down to individual social and emotional learning. ArtStarts believes that in order to most effectively nurture social and emotional well-being, we need to be providing consistent, inclusive, and barrier-free artistic opportunities to both individuals and communities.
Great. Sari, thank you so much for that presentation. Your passion for the arts really comes through. I love how you said that, the arts is really the single most effective way to bring people together. And, you spoke a lot about sense of belonging, and we know that's really important for young people to develop their own identity. And, you spoke about friendships and mentorships. And I think, again, those are all catalysts and mechanisms that really support the underpinnings of social emotional learning. So thank you very much for that. We'll come back to you later as well.
Great.
But I want to move now to Sheila at Arts for Learning. So Sheila, welcome to today's panel discussion, and I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit more about your organization.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. I also just want to thank Sari for sharing her work in such detail. No matter how long I've been doing this, whenever I travel around the country, I'm always inspired to see the impact of the arts replicated. And to hear her tell her story of the work that ArtStart's doing just resonates with me here so much in Miami and what we're doing and what we're all about. So I think that's just a testament to, as we've been talking about, the power of the arts to teach. So here in South Florida, I'm the Executive Director of Arts for Learning Miami. We were founded in 2000, and we were founded as a three-way partnership between our local school district, our local county Department of Cultural Affairs, and a national nonprofit arts and education organization called Young Audiences. And ultimately, what we've really been set up and designed to do is to give children the chance to create. As Sari's mentioned, this idea of authorship and ownership is incredibly important. The arts are first and foremost a communication tool. And as such, they end up becoming a powerful teaching tool. When a child can take something that they're learning or experiencing, and they have to go through a creative process where they have to really begin to investigate something and then create something and refine and present it and go through a reflection process, they really begin to own that knowledge in an entirely new way. So we really are an organization here where we believe in making sure that the arts are accessible for all children and that they have access to all of the arts. And for us, that means theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and creative writing. And when we speak about all children, we start from infancy and we go all the way up through high school and up to the ages of 22 if it's a student with a disability. So how do we do this? One of the things that we really believe in is the power and the significance of the teaching artist. So we work with professional teaching artists all throughout South Florida, and we basically place them in extended residencies in schools, preschools, and out-of-school programs. So we actually first started our school programs through an arts integration initiative where we had teaching artists go in and work in the public schools alongside classroom teachers to help bring learning to life in each of those classrooms and to really get kids engaged in hands-on learning. We then saw that there was a tremendous need for quality after-school programs in our community, so we started partnering with existing after-school organizations, and that included our municipalities who were running after-school programs in local city parks. It included other nonprofit organizations who were running after-school arts programs. And then eventually, we opened up our own after-school program and summer camp initiatives as well. As we were working and running our after-school sites all across South Florida, our teaching artists would come in and say, classes are going great. The kids are wonderful. I've got these 2 students and they're just extraordinary, but I'm only seeing them a couple of times a week. And they're in an after-school program in a school where it's a Title I school and they don't have a lot of extra supports right now. And what else can we do for these kids? And we decided we needed to create that solution. And while we're an organization that's not designed to create the next generation of artists, we're more about making sure children have the access to what the arts can do to help them thrive. We decided we would go ahead and launch some studio programs. And so that when there were students who really expressed that talent and interest and commitment to an art form, that they would have an opportunity at no cost to them to be able to pursue that art form. And I know we've been talking a lot earlier about the importance of adolescence and that timing and the development of social emotional skills during that time frame of a child's life. And so our studio programs are actually offered for middle school students. Most all of the students enter the program in 6th grade and they stay at the studio all the way until they complete middle school. It really does become their creative home. They work with us for 4 weeks intensively each summer. And they work with professional artist faculty in the morning. There are guest artists in the afternoon that do different projects with them. There are exhibitions. And then during the school year, the students come back every other Saturday to continue to hone their practice. That program became so successful that by the time the kids were graduating from 8th grade, they didn't want to leave the studio. It had really become a place of importance for them in their lives. And because the studio attracts kids from all around the community, they had built really strong and lasting friendships with kids who weren't in their feeder pattern or in their neighborhood. And so we've also developed an alumni program to continue supporting those students as they progress through high school. We also started Saturday programs. We realized that while all our programs were inclusive, there really was a need here for parents who had children with special needs, especially a parent that also has a typical child and a child with a disability. And so we started Saturday programs in the parks. And those programs were designed truly to use the arts as a vehicle for social emotional learning. We wanted kids to be able to interact with children of all abilities. We wanted it to be a place where they could create friendships, and that program has been significantly successful. After a few years of running that every Saturday, there was a demand from parents to also extend that into summer programming. And so now we offer 2 summer camp programs for those families and also have launched animation programs for those families as well. And then to sort of round out the continuum of services, we like to sort of say that we have a continuum of arts care from infancy all the way to high school. We started internships in the arts. High school students oftentimes are looking for that first job. Many of the high school students here actually need to work over the summer for that supplemental income to help out with their families. And so we looked around and realized, there were internships in so many different fields and there were none in the arts. And so we decided we were going to solve that problem and start providing that. Again, this is not because we want to create the next generations of artists. And if there are students who do continue to foster and go down that path, we support them. But it's really all about what can the arts teach these kids and how can they provide them with transferable skills to any career. So people hear internships in the arts, and at first they think that we have a bunch of interns doing administrative work, and that is not at all what's happening. They are actually hired to be actors and dancers and musicians and visual artists and creative writers each summer, and their job is to produce and present. And like you would in any job, they also get significant amount of professional development. And during that time, that professional development, we really customize it for each sort of crop of interns, so to speak. So we found, for instance, many of the kids who were in our dance internships were terrible at giving and receiving feedback. So we spent a lot of time on that with them. Some of the kids who were more interested in visual arts were a little more experienced in giving and receiving feedback, but they weren't so great with time management. So we spent a lot of time on that. And then there are topics that we want to make sure that all of the kids have access to, as well as college and career supports as in addition to that. So we talk a little bit about oh, I'm sorry, I haven't been telling you to move the slides. You can advance the slides. One of the things that's important to us is, what happens when you give children the chance to create. And we like to think of art skills as not just technique. Art skills really are about creativity and critical thinking and collaboration and communication, and so many of the social emotional skills. I think about our early learners, and a big component of what our teaching artists do in our early childhood classrooms is really help kids learn about their emotions through creative play and how to handle them, and what are sort of the more appropriate ways to be handling those emotions at a young age, which leads a lot to self-regulation, which is also something that is critical and important, not just when you're 2 or 3, but even now. All of our programs really serve as a vehicle for kids to learn about different perspectives and approaches. Students realize that there could be more than one way to do something, or that there's more than one right, so to speak, answer. They learn empathy. They learn how to give and receive feedback. They most certainly have the opportunity to practice their communication skills and their presentation skills. And I think through all of that, because in the practice of art making and the creative process, there is a sense of rigor and discipline, and that leads children to understanding that you can make mistakes and you can fail and you can try again and you'll find solutions, and that really helps to build a child's self-efficacy. In our teen programs, in our internships, as I mentioned, they're responsible for producing and presenting their work to the public, and going through that curatorial process as to what should be presented and why really starts to build those decision-making skills as they start to understand their consequences. We had one child who at a certain point right beside the show, she thought she had a moment where she thought that was the time that she wanted to come out to her parents, and so it sparked a great conversation around, okay, what are the ramifications of this? Is this the time and place? What would happen? Are there better ways of doing this? And ultimately, she made the choice and realized the stage wasn't the place she wanted to do it. She wanted to do it in privacy with her family, but that was her choice. But we were proud that she went through the process of realizing, one, that she was prepared to feel confident enough in who she was, but then she also thought through what was going to be the best scenario for her to have that conversation with her family and what type of environment she really wanted to be in. Something else that we hear a lot from our interns is that the internship program is one of the few places, and this I think piggybacks a lot as to what Sari was speaking about, where they feel that they belong and where they have a connection. Through the arts, I think the way that our teaching artists can create a sort of safe space for people to be able to express and share their ideas, the students are able to feel vulnerable and feel that they can be themselves and feel supported at the same time. And when you have that level of authenticity in a room, that translates into a meaningful and relevant learning environment.
Great. So, thanks so much, first of all, for everything you've said. I just want to draw attention to a couple of things. You mentioned the 4 C's: critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication, and that's really becoming more and more important to well-being in general, and the underpinnings of the 21st century skills, which is also grounded in social emotional learning. And that's the kind of skill set we talked about. The future, we're going to need more and more of that in future workplaces. And I also really wanted to thank you, Sheila, for really unpacking exactly how the skills are played out in the arts. Like you mentioned, decision making, thinking about what they're going to present, or time management skills and presentation skills, and really learning to look at different perspectives, and even failure, and bouncing back from that failure. Very, very clear as to how the arts, and the programmings that you've mentioned through the arts enable those kinds of skill sets. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, wondering if you could tell us a little bit why you think arts is, and I think you've spoken to that, but if there's anything else you want to say about why the arts is a good pathway for social emotional learning.
Sure. I mean, I think Sari also mentioned this a little bit, but I find that the arts are very elastic, and that they are very efficient in how they connect with people, both from an emotional standpoint and a academic and sort of cognitive standpoint. So I think that's the main way that I feel that they are a great pathway, is it because they speak to the entire person.
Great, thanks so much.
Alrighty, well, I think we're just about ready to move into the Q&A part of the presentation. So I encourage everyone who has questions for any of our presenters today to please enter them into the questions box. We'd love to get a conversation going. In the meantime, I actually have a question of my own for either of you or both of you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So as you were talking about that, I was wondering, why is emotional and social learning for the individual better tackled from a community or collaborative art making perspective, rather than just teaching individuals how to express themselves through the arts? I would really appreciate if you could talk to that for a moment.
Sure. Sheila, do you want to get that, or
Sorry,
should
go
I
ahead.
start? Okay.
Please start. I could use a sip of water.
Okay, sure. Well, one of the things we look at Art Starts is how individual emotional expression can have either negative or positive effects on the entire community. So when an individual doesn't have the outlet to express emotion in a healthy manner, that can really become the root of future problems that can negatively affect the entire community. We know that artistic expression helps validate emotion, and we know art making can be an extremely cathartic experience that allows you to channel emotions in a way that's not harmful to society. But the ability to experience that in the collective is also really important for individual growth. I think our girls mentorship program is a really good example of that. Even girls who were already creating their own artwork individually before joining our program, they show improved emotional outcomes when they attend our programs and are given the opportunity to create in a collaborative way with other girls. So individual art making can help provide an outlet for emotions, but it's by collaborating or sharing that we nurture those feelings of belonging and social awareness. And also self-awareness doesn't really live in a vacuum either. It's through interactions with others that we find self-awareness as well. So while individual art making can help nurture self-awareness to a certain extent and definitely self-regulation, it's really, we see that it's through collaborations and interactions with others that we find feelings of belonging and social awareness, including empathy and respect for others. Those are the things that we see happening through collaborative art making. So yeah, I really think we need both individual learning for skills building and theory and all of that, but then community art making to really get into the deep feelings of belonging and social connections.
Yeah, I think she's spot on there. I mean, I don't think it's either or. I mean, I think that there are different skills that are addressed, whether you're working on something individually and then also in a collaborative manner. And I think, community art making is a wonderful way to do it, especially to be able to be exposed to different perspectives and different people in your community. And community can be defined a lot of ways. I mean, sometimes in the nature of Arts for Learning's work, sometimes community just happens to be your class, and it's just your learning community. And
Exactly.
sometimes that community with some of our team programs literally is their neighborhood, and it is the broader community.
Great. Jack, if there's are there questions? Because I have one.
I do have some. We actually have gotten 2 questions just submitted. Yeah, so the first one is for Sheila specifically. In the A4L program, were the students who participated in the internship were the students who participated in the internship graduates of your younger age level program? Did they go through any sort of interview or audition process, or was it open to anyone who was interested?
That is a wonderful question. The majority of the interns who are in the program have not necessarily been in an Arts for Learning program before. We do have some students. We have sort of created a pipeline from that studio program. When they're in middle school, they do have the opportunity to apply for the internships as well. One of the things that's pretty amazing about our internship program is while there is an application process, and we interview everybody. If you've submitted an application and it's complete, you are guaranteed an interview. We even believe that just making sure that kids have the opportunity to come in and interview with professionals. We usually have both, our staff and some of our artists and some of our board members and professionals from the community go through an interview process with all of the students. And I will say, having a background and an experience in the arts is not a requirement for our internship program. And so it creates a really interesting dynamic. I mean, we try to accept as many as possible. And on average, we typically have about 50 paid summer internships every year. We're trying to grow that to 100. We also have school year internships. But what ends up happening that I think is a pretty important part of our design, and we did this with real intentionality, is, sometimes we may have an intern who has had experience in the arts working along somebody who this may be their first dance class. And there's a lot of problem solving that has to go on there. And you have to really be able to create an environment where everybody can start to realize each and every person's individual strengths and weaknesses and how we're going to work together as a team. And it's been brilliant. So not only are we bringing kids together with different levels of experience in different artistic disciplines, but we're also bringing kids together, from different neighborhoods across the community.
Terrific. Thank you.
I love that, Sheila. I love that you're interviewing everyone. I think that's great.
I also have another question for both of you. Are you gathering data to demonstrate the impact of your work as you go through this process?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Evaluations are a huge part of what we do. We have evaluation staff working pretty much full time. So yeah, developing our evaluations processes and collecting data, we're constantly learning, constantly growing in that area. And Trillium has been a huge support for us in that area as well. So yes, it's absolutely critical in order for us to continue to grow.
Likewise, we've actually done, we're constantly doing sort of annual evaluations of different shapes and sizes across all of our programs. We have actually done some real research and some statistically significant work in our early childhood program. Right out of the bat, we wanted to know, were we onto something, were we going to need to tweak something, and we were able to get some good research dollars for that. In that particular instance, we were looking at the development of pre-literacy skills. Right now, though, I'm pleased to share that we have just gotten an award to work with all of our Head Start centers that are managed by Easter Seals here in South Florida. And we're going to be looking at the impact of our program and social emotional learning in these classrooms.
Thank you so much. Just to follow up on that, Claire asked, is there a link for your research results, or is there a place where they could find some of the stats to back up the claims as you went through this presentation?
We hope to have that information soon. Our website is something that we're working on right now, and collecting all of that information and getting it up there is something that will be happening in the near future. Yeah.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Right now, no, we also don't have that listed on our website. And that is something that we should do. But if there is anyone who is interested in sort of our work and what we've learned, I'm hoping that we can share, I'm more than happy to share my email address and have people reach out to us and continue conversations.
Fantastic. Yes, and you can also, if you would like to follow up with Sheila or Sari, just send me an email at jack@tamarackcommunity.ca, and I will make the connections.
Absolutely.
And then I actually we're getting lots of questions now. We're picking up the pace. So our next question is, one second. This is for Sheila. Understanding emotions and recognizing social cues are tough for some persons with disabilities, specifically autism. How would you address this through the arts? Were there one-on-one supports? Can you share any experiences?
So unfortunately, you got a little broken up in the question. I think what I heard was the individual was asking about how are we dealing with emotions in children who are on the spectrum. Is that what I've heard?
Yeah, it was understanding emotions and recognizing social cues are tough for some persons, like specifically people with autism. They were just wondering how have you addressed this through the arts, and were there one-on-one supports?
So in our in our all kids included Saturday programs, we have relatively small class sizes in those particular instances. So it's not always one-on-one. It also is a program where the entire family is welcome to come, and so some parents would drop off the kids, some parents would stay with their children. I can share some great stories about some of our children that we've worked with. We had one young boy. He was probably in about 8th grade or so. And when he first came to our All Kids Included program, which was in this beautiful sort of park that had this open air, like gymnasium facility and side breakout rooms. And what he really wanted to do, his first 4 Saturdays, was just walk around the entire room and with his hand grazing along the wall. And, so our program director, she would walk with him, and then they would sit together, and slowly, just through that relationship of her meeting him where he was, he eventually decided he wanted to go into the classroom. And then from there, he, on his own terms and at his own space and comfort level, he also then began to sit with our program manager for the first few times, because that is the person that he began to sort of relate to, and began to engage in the work. And then slowly, he would go straight to the classroom, and he wouldn't need our program manager to be in there. And then within the next year, he was coming and he was talking, directly to the artist. He was talking with the other children in the program. And so it was a way where I think he found his own pathway, in terms of how to relate to the community, and starting to connect with what was meaningful for him and how he was going to be able to interact. I think the fact that we gave him the space to be who he needed to be helped that transition for him a lot.
Thank you so much. That is, right now, that's all the questions we have. Artie, you mentioned that you had a question?
Yeah, my question was related to data, which already has been asked, but I just wanted to say that I think something that really struck me again in both the presentations, that you're both utilizing the arts, but it's not about creating artists. It's really about using the arts for social change. It's about using the arts to support the well-being of the people you're serving. And it's such a different view of the arts. And I think that kind of appreciation doesn't always come through when you think about having children engage and participate in the arts. So I really want to thank you for making that visible.
Thank you. I mean, one of the things that we're lucky to have here in South Florida, the Knight Foundation happens to be headquartered here, and through some of their work, one of the things that they have really made a priority that has always been sort of our guiding statement is, to make the arts general. And by that, they mean, that everybody is participating, everybody has access. And that's something that's been important to us since inception.
Oh, terrific. Well, it seems like we don't have any more questions at this point. So looking at the time, I think we'll probably shut this down. And I just wanted to, well, first off, I just want to thank Sheila and Sari for taking the time to share some of their wisdom. This was, for me at least, speaking personally, very interesting, and there was a lot of major takeaways. I'm and a few echoes in the comments. People also wanted to say how grateful they are. It was really interesting to listen in today. I also want to thank all of our attendees for joining us today. It was great to have this webinar. So just before we call it for the day, there's just a few more logistical items we just wanted to go over. So on February 20th, join us for part 2 of this series on social emotional learning through the nature and play. So this will be hosted by Artie Freeman again of the Ontario Trillium Foundation. In this webinar, we will hear from Marlene Powers, the founder of Carp Ridge Forest Preschool, and Brenda Simon, the Director of Play Program for Outdoor Play and Learning at Earth Day Canada. We hope that you'll be able to join us and look out for the join links from the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And one last item. Artie, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I just wanted to do a quick plug and introduce you to the Knowledge Center if you're not aware yet. The Ontario Petroleum Foundation has developed a knowledge center for the sector, and it's where people can come in and gather as an online community to share knowledge and resources. So that the website, you'll see it there, it's knowledge.otf.ca. And feel free to check out the Knowledge Center following this webinar, because we're going to be posting the recording and the presentation on that space. And also, we really welcome you to share resources, promote your work, discuss a wide range of topics across multiple fields, and really use it as a space to learn from one another by posting content, asking questions, and connecting with people like Sari and Sheila as well. So join the conversation, and we look forward to continuing about social emotional learning through the arts at the Knowledge Center.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much, Artie. Thank you for wrapping that up, and thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. It was a great webinar. I hope you all have a terrific day, and look out for the recording and the slideshow on the Knowledge Center. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.